Hello folks, and welcome to this week's Hi-Fi News, etc. I have some Hi-Fi news for you, of course. After that, I have an extended-ish hint and tip. And before that, we have a trivia question. And we are changing themes. We're going physics. And the question for this week revolves around the Beatles. And the question is this: what's the 1964 Beatles hit that begins with a deliberate sound of feedback? One more time. What's the 1964 Beatles hit that begins with the deliberate sound of feedback? So don't forget 1964, folks. Please don't Google on this one. Just have a little think. Have a muse, consideration. And I will tell you the answer at the end of this video. Hi-Fi News. Let's start with an odd one, shall we? This is from the Japanese outfit Oyaide. Now, it's a company I'm more than familiar with because I have in the past used one of their turntable stabilizers and also a replacement cable. I think I had one of their cables for my Sennheiser 650s, I think it was. They're good stuff, gotta say, quality. This new product, it's odd. It's a roll of tape. That's right. It's a roll of tape. This one, though, has been produced in conjunction with a quite enormous chemical company in Japan. Now, this chemical company is a whopping great multi-billion type outfit. They produce heavy, juicy stuff like blood transfusion machines. They build entire houses. They're major, they're big. And they also produce rolls of tape. Now, this tape is a bit different. It's a noise suppression shielding material tape, mainly for hi-fi cables, but also for selected chips on a circuit board. The idea is that you wrap this material around your cable of choice or on your chip of choice, and it keeps out electromagnetic noise and radiation over a wide frequency band. The lower the noise, the better the detail. Now, according to Oyaide, the tape known as pull shut, I think it stands for something. It's capital letters. I guess it's an acronym. It's very flexible, whatever it is anyway. It's very flexible, and it can be attached to uneven surfaces, and it can be attached to conductive surfaces as well. I'll include a link to a rather techie white paper somewhere below here if you need to have a read about it. In terms of prices, well, if you have a half-meter roll, that'll cost you £20. For a 4-meter roll, you're looking at £100. Next up, we have an amplifier from Hegel. Actually, it's more of an upgrade. It's the H190V. This is, as you might expect, an upgrade from the H190 integrated amplifier. And it adds a moving magnet phono amplifier within, and it's based on the company's V10 phono amp. Now, around the back, while we are here, you will notice 2 pairs of single-ended RCAs, 2 balanced XLR pairs, a coax, 3 opticals, and a USB for the included DAC. Ethernet is included, but no Wi-Fi. Ethernet, no Wi-Fi. Also, you get the usual speaker binding posts. Streaming is included, although only via that Ethernet port. The amplifier is Roon ready. You get AirPlay and Spotify Connect support as well. At the front is a headphone amplifier. Available in black and white, the amplifier packs 150 watts into 8 ohms. It is based on Class AB tech and is priced at €3,795 or $4,200. Next up, we have subwoofers from KEF. Specifically, we have the Cube with a K and the K92, and both feature KEF's own DSP algorithm called the Music Integrity Engine, or MIE, coupled with another acronym called IBX, which is basically Intelligent Bass Extension. So, by analyzing the input signal, IBX allows the subwoofer to play louder and remain dynamic and reach right down to 11 Hz, according to the company. Both of these units offer sealed cabinets. The KC92 is a Class D amplifier pushing out 1000 watts and contains two 9-inch drivers placed in a force-cancelling layout. Basically, that means they're back-to-back, but that should remove, or at least severely reduce, cabinet vibration, and that should help detail. The other model, the Cube, that's a 300 watt Class D sealed cabinet, and that arrives in 4 driver sizes. You've got 8-inch, 10, 12, and 15 inches. Both of these units offer wireless adapter kits for wireless operation. Prices, well, for the KC92, we're looking at $2,499. That's available in March. And as for the Cube, well, there's quite a variety of prices, and I'm going to put those on the screen for you right now. Pause the video if you'd like to dwell upon this lot. Finally, we have a turntable. The concept turntable from Clearaudio has been upgraded. It's now called the Concept Signature, and it replaces all previous editions of this package. Now, the Concept Signature remains an entry point into high-end hi-fi, according to the company. So you will still get your tone arm and your cartridge, and it's a plug-and-play system. Included is speed control technology. New speed control technology. Clearaudio has something called Tacho Speed Control, TSC, and this constantly, apparently, monitors the platter's rotational speed and provides real-time feedback to the control electronics, responding to things like, oh, I don't know, decreasing belt tension, friction from the platter bearing, or temperature fluctuations. Additionally, TSC performs an automatic calibration every time you restart. You can also do a manual recalibration with a push of a button on the rear, if you fancy. The MDF plinth can be upgraded to solid wood layers bonded under high pressure. The turntable top is actually a layer of satin finished plastic. You also get an illuminated touch controller and a 30mm main platter atop the high-density aluminium subplatter. A resonance-damped DC motor with polished flat belt drives that platter. Finally, this Concept Signature is modular, so there's all kinds of variations and combos in terms of arms and cartridges and whatnot. Prices, well, without any tone arm or cartridge, you're going to pay £1,200. For that upgraded plinth, that rises to £1,450. If you want the verified tone arm and the Concept V2 moving magnet cartridge, you're looking at £2,223. I will put a link down below. That is your news. Let's look at a hint, a tip. For this week's hint tip, I may have talked about this one elsewhere, so forgive me if you've heard this one before. This is a relatively long-ish story, so please bear with me. Now, I stumbled over this hint tip quite a long time ago now, but the experience has always stuck with me, and it began when I was reviewing a pair of speakers. Can't recall what they are or were right now, but doesn't really matter actually. As always though, I prepared for the review by switching on my HiFi to warm everything up. That included the amp, CD transport, DAC and the like. Now, as is my wont, I also warmed up the speakers under review by pushing CD music through it. I say CD music because when you turn it on and you play it, you can press the repeat button and you can get on with your prep and it'll just repeat the same music over and over. So I did that, I walked away, I made some notes, I became familiar with the speaker's design, I looked at the specs and all that kind of stuff. I picked some reference speakers of my own to help with the review, I made myself a coffee, all that kind of stuff. Then I sat down for a serious listen. Now, I had high hopes for this speaker, particular speakers under review, because I'd heard the company's other models and I liked them. I'd seen the spec, I'd seen the design of the new speakers, and I thought they had a good chance of doing well. You never know, of course, but I thought they had a good chance. So I dropped a vinyl album on my turntable and I had a listen, and I couldn't quite believe what I was hearing. The speakers, they sounded absolutely terrible, very poor indeed. And my first thoughts were that there might be some sort of technical issue with the speakers themselves, because I couldn't quite understand why they sounded so bad. I was seriously considering giving the company a call to report a major problem. And I listened again just to make sure, and the balanced sound I expected was just not there. The mids were bright, treble was fizzy, and the bass offered no control at all. It wasn't a good start. Even so, it was also possible that the company had just got this design horribly wrong, of course, so I was preparing myself for a bit of a shock review. Thing is though, after taking my initial notes, I concentrated some more on the sound and I thought, well, maybe I've been a little hasty in my original damning of these speakers. Sure, they were not up to my expectations, but maybe they were not as bad as I originally thought. Average, perhaps, instead of downright poor. Then a few more minutes went by and I really had to shake my head because the speakers sounded a lot better now. In fact, they were sounding pretty good, no longer average at all. So I had to scrub out my new notes for a second time. Now, over a period of about 20-25 minutes, the sound continued to improve. And at the end of that time, the speakers, well, they actually sounded excellent. In fact, they exceeded my expectations. So the sound from these speakers, the speakers under review, had transformed across a period of 25 minutes or so. Now, let's remember, my HiFi had been warming up before I started my review for about an hour. I'd been making lots of notes. About an hour had passed. It was quite a long time, really. The new speakers themselves, they had been pumping out music for the same amount of time, so they were thoroughly run in for that day. So, thinking to myself, maybe there are other issues here, I started mooching around my HiFi, looking for answers, looking for connection issues. Had I changed the configuration in any way since the last review? My HiFi checked out, everything was fine. So I looked around the room to see if anything had changed, if there was any new devices in the room that might be causing high frequency noise. But no, the room itself was perfectly fine. Nothing had changed since the previous review. You know what the problem ended up being? The reason for all of this? It was my cartridge. This was the one piece of HiFi kit that was not warming up during my prep, as it were. I had even turned on the turntable motor, I just hadn't lifted the stylus onto the vinyl surface and began warming that up. Playing my source vinyl from cold, the cartridge sounded horrible. But when that cartridge had been running for 20-25 minutes, it completely changed the sound, improving enough for me to notice at any rate. So, from that point, I made a point of playing my turntable across a single side of vinyl, at least, before I started my review. And I continue to do that to this day. So the question is, why hadn't I heard this effect before? Why now? Well, accidental really, because I normally play a side of vinyl anyway, but I didn't realize I was warming up the cartridge. I just thought I was getting the whole turntable warmed up generally, the bearings and what have you. I didn't realize the cartridge itself was warming up, so I never really focused on that. That is, I didn't realize the consequences of not warming up the cartridge until that fateful day. And on that fateful day, I certainly learned my lesson. And that, folks, is your lot. Thank you very much for staying to the end of this video. And before you go, I'll give you an answer to that trivia question. And the question is, what's the 1964 Beatles hit that begins with the deliberate sound of feedback? And the answer is, I Feel Fine. The first deliberate use of feedback, which is the sound created when the pickup of a guitar is placed too near the amplifier, thereby picking up the sound coming from the amplifier and amplifying it further, came at the start of this Beatles hit. So now you know. Thank you for staying, as I say, to the end of this video. I'll be back next week and with another one of these. So, hope to have your company until that time, folks. Bye-bye for now.